Pokemon Legends Arceus. This game has so much hype, but also a lot of worry behind it. A lot of fans of Pokemon, new and old, are wondering exactly how good is this game going to be? Can the Pokemon Company live up to all the sales that they get? Will Pokemon Legends Arceus actually bring a lot of new and innovative gameplay ideas into the series so this series can be better for the players out there and of course for the Pokemon Company, Nintendo, just everybody involved? We're going to talk about all of that. But before we do, what's up everyone, OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, and click that notification bell to get my videos first, as we're going to be breaking down a lot of stuff here with Pokemon Legends Arceus from what I've seen, and also talking a little bit about some Xenoblade Chronicles X action as well. So make sure you stay tuned through the whole video here. So let's go ahead and first start off with Pokemon Legends Arceus. There was a brand new 6-minute overview trailer on the official Pokemon Company Japan site. Now, Nintendo did take that trailer, cut it up, and put it into like a short little promo on the official Nintendo YouTube channel. So I'll have both of those videos playing for you guys just so you can see what they took and what they didn't. So I'm guessing at some point the American side is going to take that 6 minutes and translate it all out, because there was a ton of information in there and I saw a lot of good things with Pokemon Legends Arceus. Now, for those who haven't been watching my channel for that long or don't really know what I'm about, I'm a huge RPG fan. I've been playing RPG games for 30 plus years at this point, and I think I have a little bit of a knack for kind of seeing the really good things in RPG games and kind of seeing some of the bad stuff as well as I look at the game when it comes to just the straight up gameplay or footage of it. So we're gonna go over the good things and the bad things that I've seen so far. Now, this isn't a total indictment on the game. There's not going to be a review. Obviously, this isn't a review. I don't have the game or anything, but I am going to be going over some things with good and bad, and then telling you guys the biggest thing that Pokemon Legends Arceus, in my opinion, needs to do to be a successful game. And I think that I have a good idea of what it needs based off of what I've seen at this point. So let's go ahead and start off with the good things with this. I love the premise, the setting. This is genius from the Pokemon Company to take a game and say, hey, it's not going to be the traditional normal Pokemon game, but we're going to build a single player experience and we're going to build that into one of the most beloved regions. But instead of having everything all modern and Pokemon and all this different stuff that you go to in the gyms and all that, it's going to be new. It's going to be a super prequel. There's like nothing there, and you are the first trainers. You actually live with Pokemon for the first time ever that's actually happening, because before you always know that people and Pokemon live together. It's always been that way in Pokemon games. Well, not in this game, not in Legends Arceus. Pokemon and people live separately, which would explain why the Pokemon are attacking you. So the premise in this game is absolutely incredible. I absolutely love what they're doing here, and going to Gen 4, one of my favorite, if not my favorite gens out there, is just a brilliant idea and a very good thing that they did that. Now, moving on to the next good thing here is that the gameplay loop and the new ideas. This stuff, from what I've seen in the overview trailer, the Japanese overview trailer, is phenomenal. These are the type of things that gets players invested, gets players keep on coming back for more, gets players excited, talking with their friends, sharing on social media. These are the type of ideas that is really good for an RPG and for a game like Pokemon. The crafting and mission based, having a structure set up saying, hey, we're going to go out there and we're going to do this thing out there. It's almost like the Monster Hunter loop. But before we go, make sure you craft. Make sure that you get yourself prepared and ready, because if you run into something or if you want to get something and you're not prepared, well, you're going to have problems there. So the gameplay loop of crafting, mission-based, going out there and documenting the Pokemon and logging it down and then bringing it back and potentially doing other things from a mission perspective is brilliant. So you're taking some of that normal turn-based RPG action out there, you're taking some of that Monster Hunter action, you're kind of putting it together and adding that Pokemon layer. Once again, brilliant idea, great gameplay loop, good new ideas for the Pokemon franchise. So I do love that. And if you're talking about gameplay, you have to talk about the battle system, because this is probably the most important thing, or one of the most important things with it, and which it ties into the biggest thing, which we'll talk about towards the end, but it's the action elements combined with the traditional turn-based combat. I think that if you go all the way one or the other, you will alienate potential new people trying to jump in. Now, Pokemon has always had tons of new gamers get in, but I think that by having the action elements to where you fight against Pokemon sometimes, I think it's like boss Pokemons, to where you fight against them to where they attack you and you have to dodge, and then you have to get into position, throw out the Pokeball, and then fight them from there. That to me will bring in new people that haven't been playing the Pokemon games, that don't want to sit there and just play and grind through normal Pokemon games. They want to try something different, something new, and seeing the trainer be more involved, because to be honest, the trainer has never really been involved. In Pokemon games, it's just kind of like an avatar that you use, and then you kind of just go out there and you throw the Pokeball, and then it's all on the Pokemon as if you're actually fighting with the Pokemon and giving that Pokemon commands. Whereas in this one here, it actually involves the trainer to where you're dodging it. And it's almost like a team effort between you and your Pokemon to capture this wild Pokemon or to defeat this wild Pokemon. That is, once again, a brilliant idea. Very smart to go all in on one or the other, because if you just do an action RPG, I think that you run into multiple problems. Yokai Watch 4 alienated a lot of their player base. A lot of the people who love the traditional Yokai Watch and the turn-based combat said, yeah, we're not buying Yokai Watch 4. It flopped in Japan, so it was smart of them to make a hybrid gameplay system. And when you do move over to that turn-based combat, it's the tried and true great gameplay that we've always had. And they've also even added in new styles with the speed and also with the normal, so you get a little bit of a different look, and different Pokemon are going to be able to take advantage of certain styles. So I love the hybrid. I love the combination. I think that it is brilliant what they've done here. All this stuff is very good, and it's going to pay good dividends for them going forward as I evaluate this game and kind of break down the footage, because I watched this trailer at least 50 times to kind of make this video and kind of point out really where I'm kind of highlighting where the good stuff is in this game. Now, I do love the character customization. That is always important. Having the representation from any way that you look or any how or anything, that's very good. I love the outfits. I love the hairstyles. I love what they're doing there. So very good. And they've done customization before. This is not new for the Pokemon Company, but I think that a game like this with a single player focus and everything, that is very important to have really good character customization and to have a lot of different outfits and different stuff to wear, just so you can kind of express yourself in this type of game where you're setting out on this grand adventure and it's a single player game. And I think that that's the last good thing that we're going to talk about here before we get to the not so good stuff. The focus on the single player. This is incredible. This is a very good thing, because I think that when you do a multiplayer game and how the multiplayer games need to be balanced, right? You have to think about, okay, well, this is cool from a single player standpoint, but if you're playing against somebody else, it's broken, it's overpowered, it's this or it's that. It's the same reason why games like Shin Megami Tensei and Persona can kind of do a lot of things that wouldn't be balanced in the single player, because you're not going to be able to do that in multiplayer because there is no multiplayer. So I think that with the Pokemon moves, with what they do with the single player campaign, with what they do with the action, you can do some things that you couldn't normally do in a regular Pokemon game because it would be unbalanced. So the moves would just be like, okay, that's just too much, that's too OP. So I do love that there is a focus on single player, but I also feel that that might be a double-edged sword, which we'll get into in just a bit here. So let's go ahead and talk about the bad things so far. Obviously, you can't get past the graphics or the art style, whatever you want to look at here. This is definitely seeming like a game somewhere in between the 7th and 8th gen when it comes to the graphical side of things. Now, it might just be an art style thing, or it just might be a YouTube compression thing, and I will give them credit. Every single time that they've shown this game, it's looked better and better and better. And they've done a good job of optimizing and making sure things run smoothly and look better than what it was when it first came out, which they did say that gameplay or gameplay footage is not final, but at the end of the day, it still leaves a little bit to be desired when it comes to an open world game. There's games like Legends of Zelda Breath of the Wild, obviously probably a bigger team and everything and more people working on it, but that definitely looks better. There's even games from like the Wii U. You can even say maybe Xenoblade Chronicles X looks better. There's quite a number of games that have been out on systems that look better from a graphical standpoint. And if you look at the Pokemon Company being as big as they are, having as much money as they are, then you look at the game and you're like, maybe they could have done a bit better there. But I do feel that it's also based on development time. You can have all the money in the world, but if you don't have the time to create that, then you're not going to be able to make a game that looks as good as some of these other games that were in development for 3, 4, maybe even 5 years plus. Zelda was in development for forever. They can't make that style of game in like 2 years or whatever the Pokemon company has. So that is a bad thing with this so far that I've seen. Now, obviously, the amount of Pokemon is going to be a concern as well, just because you're in that one region. How many Pokemon is there going to be? I mean, you do have other games that have came out before. There's been so many Pokemon in there. This one is going to have a smaller roster, but it's not confirmed, but it definitely seems like it's going to be a smaller roster since you're just filling out the first Pokedex there. So that might be a little bit of a bad thing for people out there. And also, like I said, with the single player being a good thing or something that's awesome, it's also a double-edged sword because there is no competitive multiplayer, which Pokemon fans have been playing competitive multiplayer for decades now at this point. All we have is trading. So you will be able to trade from someone else online and get a certain Pokemon and anything. So that's cool, but there isn't two versions of the game. So it's not like a certain version is going to have some Pokemon and the other version is not going to have these Pokemon. So trading, is that going to even really be a thing that people do a lot? They're going to have to introduce some elements that entice you to trade, or that something will be better when you do trade. There has to be something intrinsic to this system. Otherwise, trading is just like, okay, trade for what? You know, because Pokemon's always been about trading to evolve a Pokemon, or trading to, let's just say, have a certain move, or trading because you don't have that Pokemon in your game. So I'm guessing that there's going to be some Pokemon to where you can trade to evolve or something like that. So they have to figure out that for right now, but we don't really know at this point. So let's talk about the biggest thing that Pokemon Legends Arceus needs, at least the biggest thing that I think that it needs. And all this stuff is great, right? You can talk about the good things, you can talk about the setting, the premise, the gameplay loop, the new ideas, the crafting, character customization, single player. That's all fine and dandy, but this game needs some difficulty. This is something that Pokemon fans have been asking for a very long time. This is the reason why Nuzlockes even exist, is because the games have just been extremely easy. Now, the scapegoat for that, at least for me saying that, is like, okay, well, if you want that challenge, you go to online multiplayer. That's what Pokemon was built on. That's what Pokemon is. When the game was first being announced and everything, it was you take your Pokemon, you train them, and then you go fight against that guy. You beat that kid on the schoolyard, you beat your brother. It was a multiplayer type of game. That's where the difficulty came in, was fighting against trainers that were really good, almost like you were Ash in the Pokemon League and you're fighting against people and earning badges. That's what Pokemon was about, and that's where I always found my difficulty, was back when I played competitive Pokemon. I was out there playing against my brother or playing against anybody that wanted to fight against me when it comes to Pokemon in the early days. And then once we got online play with Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, it revolutionized how I felt about Pokemon, because now I can take on the world and there's rankings and there's all this cool stuff that you can do and you can trade a lot easier. So that was a revolution to me, which is why I loved Pokemon Diamond and Pearl and put literally like thousands of hours into that game back in the day. So I do feel that with this here, since you don't have that aspect of the multiplayer to gain that difficulty, you need it somewhere. If this game is a cakewalk, if it's easy like the other Pokemon games, that's just going to be boring for the game. You're not going to have to do the crafting. You're not going to have to use the mechanics. You're not going to have to worry about any of that. It's just going to be like, okay, let me just get through this just because it's Pokemon. And that's kind of how I felt with a lot of the single player experiences. It's okay, but since it's just so easy, it doesn't really challenge me at all. But at least I have the multiplayer to get that challenge. But there is no multiplayer here, so I'm really hoping that they have multiple difficulty levels, and that is the biggest thing for this game. Outside of all the different stuff that we talked about, from what I've seen, it's a solid game. I think that I've been playing RPGs long enough to kind of look and see and say, okay, it's a solid game. It's not going to be the greatest game in the world. I don't think it's going to review in the 90s or anything like that, but I think it's going to be a solid experience. It's going to get good reviews. Now, what else can you do for me? What is the big thing to make this game, or kind of take it a little bit over the top in terms of what Pokemon has had before? And that is definitely the difficulty. If the difficulty is ramped up here, if you have to really make sure that your dodges are on point and that your crafting is good and that you have to bring certain items in, or you have to find certain things in the game and make sure that you have that to be able to beat these big bosses or these secret Pokemon or these legendary Pokemon, it's going to make for a much more compelling experience, and fans are going to get excited about that because they've been wanting this for quite some time. So I'm hoping that they have those difficulty levels. I'm hoping that they really kind of push the idea of getting good at a game and not just cakewalking through it like previous Pokemon games. So I'm hoping for that, and I think that's the biggest thing with this game, because from what I've seen so far, it's a solid game. I think it's a solid game. There's some areas that's maybe not so good, right, with the graphics and stuff, or maybe the roster, but from what I've seen enough to say, okay, this is a solid game, but what else can it do? What's the big thing that keeps people playing, keeps people coming back, and keeps people talking about it? I think it's going to be the difficulty here with this from what we've seen so far. So I'm hoping that it does have that. Please, the Pokemon Company. There's been some rumors out there that this will be the hardest Pokemon game to date, and I really hope so, because it's a single player experience. So where else would you get that challenge within the battle system that they create? All of this somewhat goes to waste if the game is a cakewalk with what they're doing with the action and the combat and everything. It just goes to waste if you can just run right through it without having to do any real strategy implementation. So I'm hoping that they deliver in that area. But those are my thoughts on Pokemon Legends Arceus and what it needs. I do want to briefly talk about Xenoblade Chronicles X and why I think this game has to happen this year, as well as we talk more about the big RPGs that could be coming or are confirmed for the Nintendo Switch in 2022. So please make sure you check out my previous video if you haven't seen that on RPGs, rumors, and also the confirmed ones so far. But I do want to discuss Xenoblade Chronicles X as far as what's going on with this game, because you guys ask me about it daily. So in my opinion, I think Nintendo kind of has to make Xenoblade Chronicles X on the Nintendo Switch, and I made a video not too long ago about it, but I do think that they have to do it because I feel that Xenoblade Chronicles X is a prisoner on the Wii U at this point. We've seen so many other games from the Wii U come over, Wii U ports just come over and them have huge success on the system. Heck, we've seen Wii ports, we've seen 3DS ports, not that many, but we've seen some come over and have a lot of success on the system. Imagine having Xenoblade Chronicles X, this game that is just stuck on the Wii U, and people have been asking for it for quite some time. I think that 2022 would be a phenomenal year with everything that we know so far with the system, the fact that it's probably on its last legs when it comes to the back half of its life so far. With the Nintendo Switch, it makes complete sense with so many years after it. And if you look at it now, Xenoblade Chronicles X originally launched back in 2015 on the Wii U. Now you're looking at it, it's been 7 years since the game. It deserves that extra love, it deserves that extra time, and there's no better system than the hybrid nature of the Switch to have this. If there is no Xenoblade Chronicles X on the Nintendo Switch, that is an absolute travesty for Xenoblade fans, because I feel that this game could bring in so many new people into the franchise because of the style and structure of it. It's not structured like Xenoblade Chronicles 2. It doesn't have those type of character designs or that type of gameplay loop. It's a completely different style, kind of plays off of what Xenoblade Chronicles 1 does, but adds in a whole new element that can bring in so many people, because now you have a popular system. This could be a showpiece for the Nintendo Switch when it comes to open world games, because I'm telling you, there's not a lot of open world games, even still to this day, that do what Xenoblade Chronicles X does with its open world and mechs. There's just not a lot of them. You don't see them a lot. So that's why this game was so impressive on the Wii U, because nobody thought that it could be done. So if you put that type of experience on the Nintendo Switch and you let people play that, I'm telling you, it would blow up. So I'm thinking that Nintendo has to get this game out on there this year. Is it going to be next year? I mean, maybe they could do it, but they would have to announce it this year and then it releases next year, or announce it this year and it drops this year. They did that with Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. It was announced at a Nintendo Direct in the fall of 2019 and then it launched in spring of 2020. So I feel that they could do the same thing here, where they announce it for this year and then it launches the following year, or they announce it early at a Direct in spring and then it comes out in the fall. So I'm hoping that's the case, or maybe they announce it and then it comes out within maybe the summer or something like that. I think that might be a good spot for it. We don't know what's happening with Xenoblade Chronicles 3. So Xenoblade Chronicles 3 could be a fall game, or it could be announced this year and comes out early next year. We just don't know at this point. But what I do know is that Monolith Soft has been on a roll. Pretty much everything that I play from them is really good. From Xenoblade Chronicles 2, when that originally released back in 2017, all the way to Torna in 2018. Then in 2020, we got Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. They've all been bangers. They've all been great. They've all had good additions. They've all added something to the plate, and I think that with this game, Xenoblade Chronicles X, it would finish off that's four-peat for Monolith Soft with these games, so we can have all the games on the system. We need to complete it. We need to finish the fight. This ain't Halo, but we need to finish the fight here when it comes down to Xenoblade. So I'm hoping that Nintendo really gets on that and we get something for this year, because we just have to. It has to launch this year. I don't see why it wouldn't at this point. It hasn't been confirmed, but I think that based off of the time that we see with the Nintendo Switch and kind of potentially getting into the next generation in the next year or 2 years or so, I would think that you're running out of time to release this game, right? Unless you want to wait for the next generation, but there's no point in doing that. So what are your thoughts with Xenoblade Chronicles X? What are your thoughts with Pokemon Legends Arceus? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, and click that notification bell to get my videos first. Thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you for the next one. Peace.